did was herd sheep and help my parents in the farming. Before that, I used to listen to the radio all the time because we didn't have any TV in those days. I usually listened to the Marine program all the time, where they fought and all that, and they always happened to get the best of the enemy.
When I was a little boy, like all the other Navajo little boys, we all were sheep herders. But I didn't particularly want to be a sheep herder. I wanted to be a warrior. I would play like the sheep were the enemy, especially the big rams. And I'd slip up on them and overcome them. I wanted to be a warrior that would protect the people and the land.
The year was 1941, and the reverberations of war stirred the hearts of boys, even to the most remote parts of the Navajo reservation. An overlooked people would step forward with a persecuted language to confound an enemy and help change the tide of defeat into victory.
And then I saw the movie, a guy by the name of John Payne, not John Wayne, Payne. When I saw that downtown, I saw that picture, and when I saw the blue uniform boy, I got more interested in it. So I thought, if I don't get a job after I graduated, I'm going to join the Marine. I had this in mind already.
I wasn't intending to enlist in the Marine Corps. My plan was to enlist in what is known as the Silent Service, which is the submarine service. You see, I had been reading Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
So two of us would walk down to Federal Building and we reported to the recruiter down there. He asked us, what can we do for you boys? I said, we'd like to join the Marine. He looked at me, I don't think you're old enough. I said, I'm old enough. His name was Philip Johnson. What he did is he went down to San Diego to the Naval Headquarters and the Marine Headquarters and said, I understand that the Japanese are breaking all your code. I want to make a suggestion that I grew up among the Navajos when I was a little boy because his parents were the missionaries. He said, why don't we use a Navajo language because they're unwritten. It's not even in any book anywhere. He was sort of skeptical about it. Then finally said, okay, try out 30 men, hire 30 men, recruit 30 men, train them, and see how it come out. So that's the reason why they sent a recruiter down here to Fort Defiance. And they had to report at Fort Wingate at an uncertain date so they can be hauled to San Diego. So that's what happened. So they took these 29 men to San Diego, got them through boot camp. There's a thousand of us. There's a lot of people already marching. Some with guns, some without no rifle. That's how much they're short on rifles, trying to get all the rifles. And some still have their long hair. At the time, the guys were wearing pachuca hair. You know.
The white Marines thought of the Indian Marines as having something like 40-40 vision. I mean, better than an eagle. And you didn't have to go out in practice on the firing range. You could just pick up the weapon and hit the target. I mean, that was part of your nature. But they found out pretty quickly that that wasn't the case. We were just like they were. Of course, the Navajos did score higher than the other Marines on the firing range.
For most of these Navajo young men, it was the first time they had left the reservation. It was the first time they had left home. It was the first time they had seen others who were not like themselves.
But on the Navajo side, we just had the idea that these white boys, they're white, and they're white inside and outside. I mean, their thoughts are white, and they're clean. Everything's just, I mean, on the up and up with them. They don't lie. They don't do anything like that, and they're just real good guys. And didn't take us long to find out that wasn't true either. We did have a mutual respect, one for the other there. This one fellow said when he heard that the Marines wanted him for a special job, of course he didn't know anything about the military, the structure and the rank structure and so forth. So he said to his buddy there, he said, they're probably going to make me a general and they're going to make you a corporal. So that's the way it was.
And while we were washing our undies and all that stuff, I hear Navajos talking behind me. So I look over there, there's 29 men. They were talking Navajo. I say, hey, what the heck are you guys doing over there? They don't know why they were being there. They don't know why they were being recruited. All they knew is they were recruited. They went some men, they were recruited, not knowing that it was for our language.
The reasons for picking Navajo as a secret military code were numerous. In 1940, it is estimated that less than 30 people outside of the tribes spoke Navajo. While Navajos were one of the most isolated American tribes, they were also one of the largest, offering the best chance for finding of-age, able-bodied military men. The language itself had a flexibility and adaptability about it. When a new term or concept was introduced into their culture, Navajos would make up their own word instead of borrowing the term from the other language, so the Navajo vocabulary remained unique.
We never knew until we completed boot camp, which lasted for about 8 weeks, and then we were sent to Camp Pendleton. There we found out that there were a lot of other Navajos that were training to use the Navajo language as a code.
Put us in the classroom, every one of us had different desks. We already had different desks on the code keys, you know, this way.
The actual creation of the code had important rules and stipulations. The English and the Navajo word had to have logical connection. The link could be descriptive or it could be creative, just as long as it was easy to remember. Words had to be short for quick transmission and quick action, and words had to be distinct from each other so that the meanings were not misconstrued in the heat of battle. Speed and accuracy were the difference between life and death. Much of the code was straightforward associations from the Navajo world. Ships were named after fish, planes, birds. Military units were named after the various Navajo clans. Some of the words were personal connections and thus random. For instance, one of the code talkers knew an Italian man who always spoke with a stutter, so the code word for Italy became stutter. The connection was obscure but memorable, and proved to be both accurate and unbreakable.
The instructor put a picture about that big with all kinds of airplane on there, the one that they used during the World War II. I want you to give a name to each one of those big planes, all the way down to the small plane. And then we all gathered around and we make suggestions, which how we. Then one guy come up with this, say, what about the bird? Hey, we all agreed, let's do it.
Guinea is a small bird, small hawk. They'd be flying away up in the air, looking for prey down there, like rabbit or prairie dog, mouse or rat, And he sees one, they dive on it like this. And the dive bomber does that to it, when they're flying up there, they see a sheep on there, they dive on it, they bomb it like that. And the swallow, these swallows are a little black bird, black and white bird. They live in the cliff area. When they come down to take a drink, on the lake, they come down and they go over the water, and that's how they pick up their drinks. And torpedo plane, that's what they do. They come level over the water like this, and there's a ship over there. They drop their torpedo and go back up in there like that.
And when he came back in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, he said, "You guys do what I told you to do?" He said, "Yeah, we did." He really was impressed on how we did it, and said, "I want you to memorize it." Then he'd test us out from across the room to the other one. Then the next day, he said, "Okay, I want you to do what you did to the airplane. Name after something." Another picture came up. He said, all kinds of ships, aircraft carrier, cruisers, destroyer. Next thing, the country. Allied country, enemy country, their boss, like Hitler, Mussolini, the Daisja, the Reiching, mustache smeller, which was Hitler. Gorchin was a Mussolini.
For further adaptability, code was also made for each of the letters of the English alphabet. If there was no code word for something, such as a geographical location, the code talker would spell out the word in code. Letters which appeared with most frequency in English words, such as vowels and letters like N, S, or R, were given more than one code word for even better encryption. Some letters had as many as 3 code words, which would be swapped regularly in transmissions. Perhaps this level of detail was unnecessary. The Japanese could only make out a string of unrecognizable noises over the airwaves. They weren't even sure it was human speech.
I have never felt it was any different being a code talker than being a regular Marine, because we didn't know that what we were doing was special or highly important. We didn't even know that it was classified.
Then we went out on the field and we sent messages back and forth using all this what we learned, not knowing that we were going to be moving out to hit Guadalcanal the first thing.
You're in an environment where it's so different. There's the ocean and different other things that are very unfamiliar with the Navajo style of life. But we caught on real quickly. Things that we were not familiar with, we became familiar with them. This seems to be one of the things that battlefield situations enhance your learning. I mean, you catch on quick, or you're dead pretty quick if you don't.
Even though the code talkers didn't realize it, their cryptic messages would play a vital role for an overstretched American military, a decimating blow against a powerful enemy who dominated thousands of miles of islands and ocean.
But the code was totally devastating to the Japanese. Every battle were being won. All the battles were being won by the Japanese. And the reason was that they were breaking our military code on a daily basis. All of our movements, they knew before we initiated those movements, and they would know our strength, our troop strength, our weapon strength, and so forth. They'd know everything. After the message was sent, they would break in and say, "Thanks a lot." So we'd be there waiting for you. and they were waiting for us, and that's why we were losing the battles. But when the Code Talkers came on the scene, it changed everything. I became involved on Guadalcanal. Very few people, even the top commanders, most of them did not know that there was a new code. And Guadalcanal was a place of some really furious battles. The Japanese wanted to keep it because they were building airfields. In fact, they had already built some airfields there. The signal was strong. The language was what was thought to be Japanese. And it really threw everybody into a state of confusion, turmoil. They didn't know what was happening. But it was just, again, it was just a few Navajo boys there. That proved that the code was unbreakable and that it was useful in tactical battle situations.
But Guadalcanal is part jungle. There's a lot of underbrush. But on the beach, it's a whole lot better because you can still see, well, I'll say about 50 yards at the most.
When someone that you've known for months and you have fought beside them, they have served beside you, and all of a sudden one day they take a bullet and they're dead. And so that, it causes emotional and psychological reactions.
All over, bodies all over the place. So that place was stunk, rain, gets hot in the rain, we're sleeping in the mud, stayed in the mud. To tell the truth, that mud is warm. Keep you warm all night. There's a lot of land crab too. You can hear them coming, catch one sword in the next guy's foxhole. You cannot light anything, use any kind of a light at night. You have to go around in pitch black dark. And even though you're standing on the guard, you can't even see anything in front of your face, but you're still out there on guard. And every now and then their bombers will come around and just drop a few bombs on where we are.
But then after that, every battle in the South and the North Pacific, Code Talkers were there. And it gained the approval of everyone because it was causing the Japanese to lose and the Americans to win.
For 3 long years, the Allies clawed their way north toward the Japanese homeland until they found themselves opposite the tiny island of Iwo Jima. Over 100,000 Marines would attack from almost 1,000 naval vessels, and the Navajos were in charge of all communications. From the command posts on the ships to those on the beaches, they aimed artillery fire. They directed air assaults. They staged the movement of troops. During the first 48 hours of battle, the 5th Marine Division alone employed 6 Navajo radio units around the clock. At the end of those 2 days, the Code Talkers had sent over 800 error-free messages. The chief signal officer of the 5th Marines would state that if it were not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima.
So next came Okinawa. And Okinawa, the battle there lasted for at least 3 months. And that was the longest battle in the South Pacific, time-wise. And there the code was used very effectively, changed the face of all of the battles, and indeed the face of the war.
Whenever a commander wants to send a message, write a message, you write it down in English on paper, and then I would translate that in code to another code talker. Code talker will be a regimental headquarters. Then he'll hear the code in the radio, then he'll write it down in English, already decoded. So we had to do it real fast. See, these Japanese, they monitor where the sound is coming out, measure the distance, and then they shoot that motor to the distance where we estimated, And code talkers always pass the word on for safety. They say that if you send a message real fast, get out of that foxhole right away, You get out of there, and pretty soon there come that swishing motor, coming down and right into the foxhole. Right hit.
As soon as the sun goes down, you have to cover yourself with a poncho if you're on the radio. See where the frequency is set right. You have to do it under the poncho. Use your flashlight. You have to sleep among all that smelling thing. Eat among all that thing. There's so many flies. You have to wave your hand over whatever you're eating.
Sometimes the Japanese will break through the line looking for the telephone wires in the trail. All they do is just clip it on there, and soon then, if you hear the code message, they try to figure it out. And then sometimes the telephone people will call me and say, hey, the Japanese are on the line, So I call up this my other partner at the regimental headquarters, call him and say, well, I guess you could hear them talking, So we start talking, did you get a letter from home? It's just regular message, talking. And then sometimes we start joking, telling jokes, laugh, and then pretty soon they cut the wire.
I was assigned to accompany a combat patrol on Okinawa. During the course of this patrol's action, we came under fire from the enemy. They had more firepower, more men than we had, and so we were pinned down and we couldn't move. I had a radio, a backpack radio, and those radios had long antennas. The antenna of the radio that I was carrying was shot off probably by a bullet or fragments of mortar or something of that sort. Anyway, it was gone. The radio doesn't work too well without an antenna, so couldn't get a message out. Maybe 2,000 yards from where we were entrenched, you could see where they had their machine guns. I remember saying to the officer that was in charge of the patrol, I can run down there and I can get them. And he said, no, your job is communication. Get that radio back in operation. Send a message for an airstrike. I would always carry some bit of field wire strung on my belt. I was fortunate enough to reattach it, call the command ship, which is usually a battleship heading out a ways. On that battleship, or on that command ship, there would always be Navajo Code Talkers. So in just a matter of minutes, actually, the Marine Corsairs, those were fighter planes that the Marines used in that day. They came off carriers. They came over, made the airstrike, and we won the battle. Because of the code, they couldn't pin us down for very long. They wouldn't know that we got through or that or what we requested, so they weren't prepared for it at all. I do remember a battle that we were in where a lot of people on both sides were killed. During this battle, there were men that before the battle seemed to be so very physically and mentally strong, but the battle caused them to break down, and many of them would have to be carried off of the battlefield, even though they weren't wounded. I did experience some of that, where when I reflected upon what had just happened, it would be rather upsetting.
They have something like this kind of uniform, called a winter green, and they have a barracks cap like this, made out of this material. And we came home on furlough in May of 1945. I don't have no civilian clothes, so I had to wear it while I was herding sheep.